So we're back with correctional views, and I'm scared this episode. I am scared that this is the episode that's gonna get me in trouble. Only because I'm about to tell family business. And especially in black families, you're not supposed to tell family business. If there's problems in house, you don't talk about them in the streets. You keep them in the house, and when the family steps out on the streets, everything is good. We're fine. We're collected. We love each other. We support each other. We like each other. Y'all know that's a lie. Like, y'all know we don't be all together like that. That's what this conversation is kind of aligned to. Not my personal family, but the organizations that have been created and stand on the foundation that they assist those re-entering society after prison. Because I just want to let you know now, in 2019 and 2020, I can't say that I didn't get assistance from any other organizations. I can just tell you that I never received assistance in the state of North Carolina from an organization built to help my kind. And that was just really, really, it made it a very hard year. But we're going to talk about all of that. Like, the only wish that I do have, even after this episode of telling my truth, Dominique Goodman's truth, is that it doesn't stay this way. And that there is connection, and then there is alignment with, organizations so that everyone gets support, because I am well aware of the fact that the support I run with is rare. My family, my friends, my colleagues from A&T, everybody doesn't have that. But we're going to talk about it. Bringing Bass on the first episode was so vital to know like how some of my steps started. So I started a Correctional View, the podcast, only because I was told primarily by my best friend, like, you need to start a podcast. In this last episode with Bass, you hear me make a reference to me doing like spoken word and poetry, and so getting on a stage and speaking has never been my plight. I'm perfectly okay with it. I kind of referred to myself as like a Mary J. Blige poet. And not that I was like always heartbroken or always like in love or, leading some, writing some lyrics to like I was going to find the one. It's just that when anything struck my heart and I needed to release, writing was my release. And that was my creative way of expressing myself. So, are there a couple of guys that have some poems on them? Yeah, there are. But there were also poems that I wrote about my son. There were poems I wrote about other female situations. And it was just a great way of expression. And so this podcast ended up being a great form of expression of my truth again. And I was never nervous in speaking. I was nervous in releasing. I won't take that away from myself. But I was never nervous in speaking my truth like I've always done. And Bass was one of the first people to reach out and say, hey, we need to work with you. He knows my work ethic. He knows how I align with right and wrong. He knows that once he heard this podcast that she's about this business. And I will forever and always be grateful for working with Advanced Carolina as a fellow in 2020, because it showed me a light of how I can go about this abolishment of prisons in a strategic form, or abolishment of the system surrounding methods of incarcerating more and more people every day in a political form. Not saying I'm going for like a political office. That's not what I'm saying. Ain't about that life. But you have to know what they're doing behind those doors sometimes. So that was my introduction to him, but well, it wasn't my introduction to him, but his organization. But I still needed other help. So I'll continue to tell you, just reference points. I did interstate compact. My entire journey through the court systems and incarceration, all done in Arizona. Was I aware that there were organizations that assisted those once you were released? Yeah, in Arizona. There were organizations that wanted to work with me further after I was released. My TED Talk brought a lot of attention on that. My employment with a company named Televerdi brought a lot of attention to that. However, once again, in Arizona, Dominique Goodman came back to North Carolina on July. I was on a flight at like 11 o'clock July 5th back to North Carolina. So I didn't have any of those the known organizations in my head when I came home. I didn't know anybody that had ever been incarcerated in a prison when I came back home. None of my friends could help me. My parents, they couldn't help me. So I just made like a natural, if I can speak, a blind assumption that, okay, we have to go to prison. I have to report to the probation. We don't have to go to prison. I have to report to the probation office. And they're going to tell me where to go for all this stuff. No, 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 no. I didn't come on probation with the list of requirements of, you know, community service and I don't know, group therapy or anything like where I'm going to classes or nothing. I can't even like come up with something on top of my head. I didn't have to. I don't have to because I'm still on probation. The only thing that they listed with me immediately was that I needed therapy for my situation, which was not a lie. And I was actually kind of excited because I'm like, okay, they're going to get me into therapy and I can speak with someone to assist me because I have a lot of things to unpack. Like, there's a lot up here. Um, yeah, that therapist was trash. Like a lot of people, when they start hearing my story, they become like intrigued and engaged in the storyline, like, you know, it's HBO and I'm like here to entertain them with my trauma. I want to say like maybe like two second maybe session that I had with my therapist, she was telling me her problems and how my story motivated her to do more. It was all bad. It was really bad. I didn't get anything from it. She didn't provide me with tools to like reflect upon and blah 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 blah. It just didn't happen. So I'm just like, yo, who do I talk to? I didn't know. I did not have anyone assisting me or telling me where to go for employment. I did not have anyone saying, hey, here's a community of other individuals that have been incarcerated. Maybe you can speak with them and they can help you. I didn't have that. The only thing that aligned me with individuals to speak to, uh, once again, was Aggies introducing me to other people that they knew that worked in a space similar to this and or in criminal justice reform, or, you know, grassroots organizations that are fighting against, you know, the equitable systems that are not in place when we are released. And even though that did help, it didn't. I felt so alone, and no one could understand why I was alone because you have, you know, my mom and my dad, and, you know, they're like super, super, super team Dominique. Love my daughter till the day I die. Whatever she needs, I got her. My mom she bought a new car before I came home, but she saved her old car. So when I got home, I would have you know, some vehicle transportation. Um, I was able to save. I walked out of prison with quite a bit of money working for Televerdi, because I was making, I think I made up to like $6 an hour at the end of it. And they don't give you on your books where you're able to spend all the money that you're making. So what they do is you'll get paid, your 80-hour check. They'll tax that check for 20% room and board. I was trying to figure out how I get evicted from prison. I got to pay y'all to be here because I work here? Okay. They took out another 20% for restitution for the one person that wanted me to pay for their bumper in the car accident that I didn't commit. And then they save up until you reach $100, and which was quick on my part. They say they take 25% out of your check. So at the minimum, which is a lot of people, you're walking out of prison with $100. And you're walking out of prison at this time, and this is in 2019. I know the money increased to a certain extent. I'm not exactly sure how much they're required to give individuals now. But if you, for whatever reason, cannot work while you're in prison, the max amount of money that you will leave out of prison with is $50. $50 was what the state of Arizona was required to give you at the minimum at that time. Like I said, it might have changed, so I don't want people saying, "Oh, we give them $100 now," because $100 out of prison is so much money for a person to get on their feet and run, right? Of course not. Yeah, so I did walk out with quite a bit of money. I did, walk out to the support of my family, but the only tools I was armed with outside of that was a prison reentry course. Yeah, let me tell y'all about this prison reentry course, okay? So, in a sense, to some people coming into prison, it may have provided them with information that they have never received before, i.e., opening up a checking account with, like, Wachovia, Bank of America, the typical chain bank. In my sense, I was like, okay, I know how to do that. What's next? They teach you how to write a check. Okay, don't write a lot of checks, never wrote a lot of checks, but I know how to put one together. What is this doing for me? They teach you like prioritizing what's important and what's not important. I can't even pull of a strong sense of like things that they went over in the class, because sometimes you skipped a lot of information because we didn't go to class every time. Sometimes the counselor that was over teaching the class wasn't there, but they wanted to end at the same date. It was really just a waste of time and something for you to do. And you got excited about the class only because you knew that meant you were about to go home. That's it. Outside of that, I didn't learn anything. They didn't teach me things that I should have been prepared for. The things that I should have been prepared for reentering are, flowing back into systems with my friends and family. How my family may have been traumatized while I was in prison and what they're dealing with. How to mark or benchmark success after coming out and not comparing yourself or your success to the success of others that have been out of prison and, well, not been out like they ever went in, but they haven't been in prison. They have been working jobs, getting degrees, creating families and doing all the things that they've had time to do. How do you not compare yourself to them? Those are like the most vital things that I would wish I would have been prepared for, because those are the things that hit me the hardest immediately. I started thinking when I got home that none of my friends rock with me anymore. Because while I was incarcerated, the friends that I was talking to on the phone, 9 times out of 10, like if I call, you're going to answer the phone. And that was just the thing. I never called. I tried not to call on holidays because I wanted them to enjoy their families. I didn't want to have the guilt of them feeling like they had to speak to me to make me feel better on a Christmas, because Christmas never feels like Christmas in prison, like ever, ever, never, ever, never. But, I wanted to be able to like let them enjoy their peace. And these same friends that will always pick up the phone when I call while I'm in prison, because they can't call me back if they don't answer it. That's it. But they weren't answering the phone anymore when I got out, and they weren't calling me right back when I got out. So I didn't understand like the typical work day. or the energy that it takes out of you having a work day, or people with kids now, like how much kids had drained them because they have to deal with the child all day. They got to go to work, they got to feed the child, take the child to school, get the child home, the child is hungry again. It's a lot. Like, but I didn't get that. I'm just like, oh, they're not answering. They don't rock with me. I'm a criminal. They don't want to hang out. And it sounds really silly to say that now because I know better. But at the time, I didn't know better. And I didn't have anyone guiding me through that. I didn't have anyone guiding me through family reactions or family impact of prison. And to this day, there are conversations I do not have with either one of my parents because I don't know how that is going to affect them. I don't know how hearing me on the phone sometimes crying in pain really impacted them. Because in my head at the time, while I was incarcerated, I'm like, who cares what I feel like? Because you can hang up the phone, and if you want to feel better, go get you some Bojangles. You can go up the street. You can drive to the gym. You can go turn on the television, and you can chill and relax. That's what I'm thinking in my head while incarcerated. Is that the truth? No. When you love somebody that's incarcerated and they call you, even for 15 minutes, and they're going through something that you can do absolutely nothing about, that feeling of helplessness is powerful because it's like, how do you help someone you love stop hurting? Oh, they're in prison? You can't help them. So you just like think about like the last time like one of your friends may have called you, and what's like something unattainable that we can fix? Okay, your friend is in love with this other person, man or woman, and that person is treating them terribly. And that person has made them feel like they are the lowest piece of something on the earth, but they're that person that you know that they're going to go back and deal with them. So it's just like you feel helpless because it's just like, oh, you sad right now, but it doesn't matter what I tell you. What my words can do no change, like you can't create change. That might not even have been a good example because as I was saying that, I was like, yo, the second time I realized you're not going to listen to me, I don't feel sorry no more. But you get my point. It's a situation where it's someone you love and you try to do something immediate. Because, like, even in that situation, you're going to at least try to take your friend out, tell them a funny joke, have like a FaceTime and talk about it, laugh about something else. You don't have the options for all that while a person's incarcerated. Not at all. So I came home and I tried to relax a little bit. I tried just a little bit. But once again, I'm on social media and they're telling me I'm lazy. And I'm looking at people buy houses and cars and take trips to places outside the country and spend money and buy shoes and get fancy. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta catch up. Catch up how? I am a person that now has two felonies on her record: aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault and endangerment. The deadly weapon in my case was a car. Endangerment was they continue to ask people if they felt that their life was in danger that night. Of course, they're going to say yes. Charge on me. But that doesn't read, if an employer is looking at that, that doesn't read, oh, she was in prison for a car accident. She didn't do, but she's innocent, even though the courts wouldn't, push through her appeals. Like she didn't do that. You don't get that luxury. And so I had to go out and find it. I found a position with it was a home protection company where they do um the CPIs of the world, the alarm system. You walk in, turn it on. If somebody tries to steal your house or break into your house, it goes off. Pew, 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 that thing. I worked there, and it actually paid pretty good money initially. So I was making like $600 a week. which was like rich in my book because I'm like, bet. But that kind of fell off because then people were not like in my lane of it, weren't wanting to get it. And I wasn't where my passion was because this is when I started working, that was probably around November ish. I got a job. And that's also after I, started recording my podcast. After I went ahead and got my organization name, and I'm trying to figure out ways to promote education into about the courts and about prisons, so people can know I don't want anybody else going down my path. So what happened was, right, I I called my friends because I was like, y'all, I gotta quit because I started finding other organizations. I had been introduced to Kiana Johnson. She's the executive director and the founder of Life After Release up in PG County in Maryland. And so she was starting to introduce me to other people in other places that actually directed me to organizations in North Carolina. And so I started learning about the times of like some of their programs. And I met with someone at Shaw to see like what I could help with. And my schedule at my job was conflicting with all of that, right? And so ultimately I was like, yo, I gotta quit. This is not my purpose. This is not helping me do what I need to do. I hate it here. And I had friends that were like, pump your brakes, Dom. Don't quit. And I was just so gun-ho because I had already spoke to my mom and I was like, I can't work here, Mom. I got stuff to do. And my mom is the one that would have been impacted the worst out of me choosing not to work there because I live at your house. If I'm not working there, that means I'm not saving money to get my own house. And I'm gonna be here a little longer than what we both, we really both wanted. But she was like, she was with it. She was like, quit. So Dominique quit. But the organizations that I had found to try to start aligning with, they weren't really too responsive after that too much. I went to one meeting surrounding call banking. So to reach out to people that had been impacted by the justice system and they were, they didn't know that they could vote, or maybe they didn't have interest in voting. And so we are going to call in and we were going to, help them. I was like, all right, cool, cool, cool. I can do this. But it was so bad because even when I got there and I tried to speak with the individuals running the meeting, it was so political. And I say that in a sense where they spoke to me as a politician. Like, you know how you say like, hey, like, oh, hey, I'm so glad that you're here. Great, just like have a seat over there. And then you go to speak and say something like, oh, hold up real quick. I handle something. I'll be right back with you. However, that I'm gonna be right back with you, that never came. Like, I have very important people in other states that have connected me to you, telling you, hey, speak to this girl. And they never had more than like a 3-minute conversation with me. And in that same meeting that night, they started elevating facts about, fighting for nonviolent offenders and nonviolent offenders only. Like I said, aggravated assault, deadly weapon. I'm a violent offender. Not a guilty one, but a violent one listed. And I was like, well, I understand that you're fighting for nonviolent, but what about the individuals that are violent and don't they, deserve access to those rights as well? I was told basically, wait your turn. We have to get the nonviolence first, but then we're going to come back for the rest of y'all. And it just made me feel small once again because my first interaction with this organization was at a meeting downtown Raleigh somewhere. I'm at a church and I told you all, like, there were all storylines of basically started as a crackhead, now I'm a doctor. In which there's no problem and there's like much victory in that story. But that is not every person's story that goes to prison. Everybody doesn't start off on drugs and end up in prison. Not anymore. And the people that do start on drugs and then go to prison, I know for dang sure that prison isn't the sole reason that you were rehabilitated. You have to mentally set your focus that says, like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can recognize the impact of my decisions and the ramifications that America places on me because of them. I'm going to get my stuff together. When a person enters that mindset, anything is possible. That person can accomplish anything. I know that now. But once again, a player just got out of prison and a player don't know what to do, and these stories don't help me. And nobody's talking to me. Like, nobody is saying anything or telling me, hey, this is a good place to go get, like, seek therapy because you've been impacted, to have someone that can, actually assist you. No one said, hey, do you have a job? Because these places are hiring. These are places that you can go, hey, do you know anybody that's ever been impacted by the system before? Let me let you holla at old girl because she can tell you all about the transition to such and such. And if you have any questions day to day, we got you. Nobody said that to me. In a typical Dom fashion, I'm like, all right, cool, I'll figure it out myself. And ultimately, I did figure everything out by myself. And when I say I figured everything figured out everything by myself, it means I figured out how to survive by myself. So it's not that I learned the system and I learned the best things and practices to follow, or what, barriers lay ahead of me, or what are the best things and most strategic, moves to take part in, whatever. It's I said, okay, we need to create an organization that stops this from happening. So that was the birth of Correctional Views, and the sole purpose of presenting the image of what people are like now, what a person that is listed as a felon looks like. Because the last thing a person is going to think when they speak to me is like, oh, I wonder when she got out of prison. Oh yeah, she probably been in a joint before. No. I just needed to shine that light and say, hey, you don't think that way about me? Let me tell you how my story right now, this could be you. I started writing articles. I learned how to do web development. I created my own website by myself. I was doing graphics, creating different images and content, trying to put all of these things together so people had it. But it wasn't that it wasn't that great. I didn't know anything at the time about the trends in social media, or what was most popular, or what people paid attention to, or how to grab a person's attention off of a graphic. Because I'm gonna be honest, like, a lot of graphics that they put online, like that they have like the little deck charts to like inform you on whatever, those just don't grab, those aren't my way of ingesting material. And so I struggled a lot. But I didn't have help. I didn't have any help. I had this organization that I had to pay fines for, like not fines, but like just fees for. I have this website bill. I have this podcast bill. I have a audio engineer bill. I have all these things that I'm trying to do, and I don't know. I have to pay for them. How? So I became a fellow at Advance, and I wasn't looking to work with them to pay all these bills, but that's how I began to fund some of them. Outside of two friends in particular that literally like link their debit card at times to make sure that monthly bills are being paid on side of Correctional Views. They saved my life. But anyway, I'm working with Advanced Carolina, and then I start to notice, not to notice, but 2020 happens, right? And you realize like how many issues the Black community has outside of mass incarceration. So I'm speaking on different things. I'm doing table talks, inviting different guests, bringing on, people that are white to speak with the Black community, because white people had some strong opinions in the beginning of all this. I mean, they probably still do. but they're not as vocal as they were before. But I'm like just looking at different things and concepts, learning politics and policies. But I'm still realizing, like, even with my knowledge that I'm gaining through Advanced Carolina and the insight and perspective that I'm able to provide off of my experience alone, I don't know everything. Like, I I don't know. I don't know how to actually get active. I don't, you're seeing all these protests, and I'm scared of protests at this time because I'm on probation. And the average person that gets locked up, they spend, some time in jail, get released. If I have a violation on probation, I'm going back to Arizona. So no, I don't want to go into these protests where I see all these police acting wild and arresting people just cuz they're there, because I'm not going back to Arizona. So I immediately look into other people. I'm introduced to other Aggies that I've never met before, who suggest other organizations to become a member of, and so I do. But even those organizations that are inclusive of those impacted by the justice system, like if something happens in a rapid response need, or they have a plight against like mass incarceration, that's when they'll speak up on it. But I didn't learn anything from this organization other than it wasn't my truth. And that was more recently in the end of 2020, where I had to step away from that organization because there was a rapid response that they did in the plight of the death of another girl a death of a girl in Durham County in North Carolina. And the girl was arrested, I believe, on the 15th. And then she died on the 19th after medical had took her to the hospital. So there were a lot of questions that weren't answered. However, I understood the backdoor policy of the jails and prisons and what you actually had the authority to ask and didn't have the authority to ask. I understood the fact that they don't have to tell you what happened. You're not even the family. Is your name or organization listed on the documentation that allows them by law, HIPAA law, to release what happened to this girl? Are you understanding that the policies that are in line with prisons, they create this contract structure that makes them undestructible completely. They have a separate contract for food. In Perryville, it's Trinity, and they're the organization that is responsible for sending in all the food and getting the chefs to fix and prepare these meals to feed us. With medical, every prison and jail has a medical contract. Mine in Arizona was Corizon, which had a list of lawsuits listed against it. If you ever just Google like contracted medical services through prisons, they all got lawsuits because they're terrible. They don't do their job. And I knew that. I knew of it because I had to live that. My dad was trying to help, and in his help through their systems, I ended up targeted. It was just a whole thing, and I'm trying to like offer up my knowledge to this organization, and they don't even care. So it's just like, okay, I'm supposed to feel safe in this organization, do direct action for the Black liberation in this community, like, everywhere. And when I try to speak on the things that I know, like the back of my hand, my opinion doesn't count. All right, bet. That has been my experience with these organizations. Like, it may have some people even thinking that what does Correctional Views actually do? Because we see her do a lot of things. We see her do these mock trials. We've seen her talking about the Law Related Education Act of 1978. We see her right now, 2021. She's helping back, to give back to the reentry population and give support through gifts and services through Black-owned businesses. What does she do? So I will say this. The mission of Correctional Views is to educate primarily the largest targeted area, but all people, every person, about the justice system, statutes, laws, premises of things that may get you in trouble, things that you need to look into if you have, like, that thing that you just do. Look up the ramifications for that after you move into a new city, because what you may have gotten away with in that city, you're not getting away with in another state. There's a quote that I used to hate hearing, even after incarceration, that everybody's a felon, they just never got caught. And when I first got to prison and heard that, I felt that that was people in prison's way of making themselves feel normal with other people. Like, everybody would do this. Because I'm thinking in my head, like, bruh, but I would never sell drugs. I would never kill that person. I don't even know how to do check fraud. I'm like, so y'all just. But then you learn that literally a lot of people would be deemed felons had they been caught doing what they did. Who's teaching people about this? Who is letting people know that this could, if you knew this one thing, you wouldn't have to go to prison because you could work around it. You could avoid it. You could learn the questions that you're supposed to ask your attorney when you get to court, because don't just pay them a lot of money and expect them to do their job, boo. Don't do it. Because then you're going to end up with a lawyer like Elizabeth Mullins, and then you're just going to be screwed and $40,000 short. Like, it's just, so if you just ever hear that name, Elizabeth Mullins, just know that she, unless something changed or the spirit hit her and she's like, I'm going to act right, I wouldn't hire her. I had so many questions. I didn't know, like, the best ways. I got paranoid going out with friends because I'm just like, yo, if this, like, ends up being like that night that a lot of people have, it's just like, oh, we just ended up, somebody was drinking and driving, we got pulled over, or an altercation happened in the club and people are fighting. I just knew that my worst case scenario for the night trumped everyone's. I'm going to prison. I'm going back to prison. So y'all gonna chill in jail for the weekend. And then y'all can put some money on my books and we can talk while I'm in prison for the same night. That kind of anxiety, it's not healthy at all. Like, it's really not. I made the mistake of not reaching out to certain individuals while I was that I had been incarcerated with, because I felt like, and still feel like at times, that my problems never qualify as real felon problems. A person that has been listed as that. I don't qualify as a person impacted by the prison system because I don't really know what image people see, or if I'm wearing something that makes it look like I have a lot of money, or that my life is just like flawless and I don't have any issues. Nobody has ever questioned me about, my background. No one has ever denied me of anything because I am listed as a felon. Nobody ever asked me about that. I just feel like everyone assumed I was good. And I wasn't. I thought that calling back and speaking to my closest friends that I had been incarcerated with was selfish because they were experiencing different things that I didn't have to think about. And it doesn't say that their problem was worse than mine or mine is worse than theirs or doesn't equate. They were just different. Like, so in my comfort zone, I was not comfortable. I had never experienced the things that I was experiencing. I didn't know how to get help because these organizations that listed, assistance for me, nobody called me back. No one emailed me back. I tried to drive to an office 1 month so many times, but kept getting like the runaround and, oh, I've been busy. Oh, if you're not the person to speak to, who do I speak to get help? Anybody? I feel that maybe because I was incarcerated in Arizona, not North Carolina, I don't count. That don't even make sense. It doesn't matter where I was incarcerated at because you are a reentry aligned organization. I didn't know at the time that there was a whole reentry committee council, and that had I contacted, they may have actually been able to provide me with more tangible assistance. But I didn't know because that information wasn't listed in my probation office. My probation officer didn't say, hey, you should contact such and such because they might be able to help you. Nobody listed anything. And so for the entire 2020 year, I can't even say that I was always working on something that came with a tangible like result, like, oh, that's what she finished. But I knew that I had to do something. I told you guys I was trying to keep up with a group of individuals that I shouldn't have been comparing myself to. I was trying to impact change immediately, which I should have known wasn't gonna happen. And I was trying to stay busy so I felt that I was worth something because my personal worth felt so low. I unfortunately developed some sense of success that aligned with monetary value, what I was able to purchase, where I was able to go. What can I get for my friends? What can I go out to eat tonight? Can I afford these things? Because if I can't, I didn't make it. I didn't succeed. I overlooked so many things that I was able to assist people with and didn't equate that to success, all because it didn't come with a tangible result. And that doesn't even go to say, like, the crazy thing about that was I've never looked at correctional views as a place to get money. Like, I never wanted to make money off of it. I always have, the popular conversation with anything anybody does is how do we monetize off of this? I never wanted to monetize off of correctional views, ever. It's just like this system should be in place and people should have access to that information. Yeah, that was it. But unfortunately, we live in America and money makes the world go round. So you need money. It's necessary. However, I didn't know what to align myself with. I didn't know what to do at the time. In, let's say, fast forward to September-ish 2020. Oh, that was probably like before. Back in probably April or May of 2020, before COVID actually. So we're gonna say back in March, end of March, before the whole COVID, the severity of COVID struck. I started working at GNC part time as well. And long story short, with GNC, COVID hit and there was employment that didn't feel COVID was that serious. I didn't feel safe there because I was scared to catch COVID. Like, I still lived with my mother. My mother has some serious health issues that she deals with, and we didn't know how COVID would impact that. I don't want to be that person that gets my mom sick. One day I literally just woke up, I was like, yo, we quitting. And it was like, when I say that one day, it was literally like September. Um, but it just didn't align with my spirit, and I knew that I had to be doing other things. And I quit. I quit without having a solid, um, a solid plan of financial means at that time. Like, yo, I still gotta pay probation. I still have gas. I still have like small bills like I'm aligned with, especially like websites, like I said earlier, podcasts, like monthly bills that come up with things that run for correctional views. I didn't have any plan of how I was taking care of any of that. I just literally said, I can't work here anymore. And it was actually one of the smartest things that I've done, because it allowed me to open up space to do other things. And ultimately I think I quit on a Wednesday. I had a job by Monday, a job offer by Monday, actually working along the lines of an organization that fought for Black liberation. I was like, I couldn't have scripted that better. But it's not the way that anybody should move, because November 2nd, election night. I broke down. Like that was the mental break that I got, and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. Like the week of before election night, I'm working with this, organization that I've been hired for with contract pay. I'm trying to do the work for that. I'm trying to come up with content for correctional views and like solidly align my organization so I can figure out how to create funding, because everything is being done by Dominique. So the graphics that people are seeing and complimenting, the video designs, the website development, I am doing it all, contacting individuals. I set up a mock trial with kids, and I aligned with another organization, the 54th. However, I still had to create, the list of what we're going to talk about, the actual case, speak with the lawyers, make sure the lawyers would be there. I was able to obtain lawyers that had done mock trials before, make sure everything was printed out, make sure that, there's back information that people can continue to get after that, because I wanted to set up something that was going to continue. It didn't continue. I released the Law Related Education Act and said I was going to fight to get this back into school system. And what the Law Related Education Act is, and quick, is it was passed in 1978, which allowed commissioners to allocate funding to schools, nonprofits, any organizations working with children, to teach them about statutes, the court systems, interactions with police officers, enhance and engage them with critical thinking skills if they were ever to become, involved in any of these situations, and also, promote the desire for someone to learn it and be like, hey, I want to get involved with that. That act was dissipated in 1981, and a lot of schools don't even know what it is. There are like organizations and different things that happen across the country, but it's not a common thing. I was trying to fix that too. Yeah. I got to the point where all I needed to do was make it to the gym to know that I would be okay for a couple hours. Let me release some endorphins. I broke down. I thought that Advanced Carolina was going to realize it and they were going to fire me before the fellowship ended. I thought that I thought that the contract position that I had acquired that was going to fire me because I wasn't, on a random day I wouldn't be able to produce something. I was so overwhelmed. I was so broken because I didn't know what the fuck to do. I wasn't speaking to anyone that has been incarcerated. I didn't have a mentor for guidance. I didn't know what to and what not to say to my parents. I didn't know how to engage with my friends without having to explain my trauma every time. I didn't know how to react to friends telling me that my trauma was similar to something they experienced last week at their job. I I didn't know how to not be that I wasn't a crybaby to a lot of people. I wasn't complaining to a lot of people, but I didn't know how to keep telling people I still need help and I'm not okay. It was hard. Society has created the stereotype of the black man and woman that goes into the prison system. That person that has to be, aligned or addicted to drugs, that person that has to be developed in that community that didn't have assistance, that didn't have support or structure. So, of course, they're dangerous. That person that was involved with sex work as a means of survival that still gets arrested for trying to survive. I was I wasn't any of it though. And so, like I said, stepping out and away from it, I felt that I had to still possess one of those things that would allow somebody to feel like I was somebody worth helping. outside of my A&T community. It never really happened. I have to always and forever lift up names of Bakura Shabazz and Kiana Johnson, individuals like Shay Harris, Brandy, I don't know her last name, like, as I'm recording it. There's like so many people that would step in just to give up offerings of like, this was what you can do, and that are familiar in this system a little bit. But I felt alone. And I think right now is a really good time to even be a witness to the lack of community that I kept or I had access to. Because with this podcast season, I wanted to, as you know, people like tune in and listen, I wanted to like kind of recreate the support that I was able to attain while I was trying to figure all this crap out by myself. Aligning with George A. and Colin Richards and freaking individuals like Rodney McGill. Like, I wanted to say, hey, these people, they're accessible to everybody. I promise they wanted to help. My entire alignment with my sponsor for this podcast, quick shot. Yeah, okay. This wasn't even supposed to be a sponsor break, but my favorite color is purple, if you can't tell a little bit. And this watch speaks to me like it's me. It makes sense that I have it on. But they have so many other different styles that make sense to so many other people. Just go to Nordstrom, their website. Just look at them. Anyway, I was able to align with organizations like this because they're like, they hear my story. They're like, what can I do to help? And I'm just trying to figure out if these people that have never been seriously involved with the criminal justice system ever are trying to find ways to help me. Why aren't the same organizations that get paid every year doing the same thing? I've learned a lot in this past month alone with that support. And like I said, I think one of the biggest mistakes is that I didn't keep in contact with some certain individuals. But the other day, I broke down and I'm literally scrolling through my phone and I don't know who to call. I don't know who to call. I talked to somebody and they were like, oh, Camille can't help you. Camille's my best friend, y'all. I need you guys to stop thinking that my best friend got the answers to all my problems. My best friend, even though she was on the phone, was not in prison with me. If I talk to her, there's still a lot of things I still have to explain. If it's not a conversation we've already had and she doesn't understand it, I have to explain it to her too. She ain't the answer, yo. And so now, once again, Dominique Goodman is stepping in the fields into where this has to be solved because it's not cool. It's not okay. No one should ever feel as alone as they do. I'm not saying that no one should struggle coming out of prison because sometimes that struggle is inevitable. Sometimes getting that strength to fight up against an unequitable system that was built against you, despite the fact that you've already served your sentence for the crime that you may or may not have committed. In my case, I did not. It still doesn't play fair when you get out. No. Organizations need to make sure that I am a rarity. This story, just like my wrongful incarceration, This story of my lack of assistance needs to be a rarity because it became dangerous. If I did not have my friends that I call family paying to get me into therapy, if I did not have my friends helping me with different financial, advice and things to work for, things to fix your credit, things to, get more aligned and save, even though you don't have that much money. If I didn't have those people aligning me with people that could help me with things with my business, if I did not have my mom and my dad, I might be back in prison, yo. Maybe I would have turned to drugs because I didn't know where to run. And I'm not being funny. Maybe I would have had to start doing some illegal activities to make sure that there was a roof over my head or at the minimum food in my stomach. Maybe I would have just stopped caring about my actions that I have to be so aware of at all times because I'm still on probation and any violation can send me back to prison. Maybe I would have been to the point where I didn't even care. And people wonder why people go back to prison. People get out of prison and they're left in these systems that don't help you, that don't address your needs. They may address a need, but what about yours? What about what you in particular need help with? Just be patient. We're gonna get to these nonviolence. Sorry, bad joke. Everything is patience. Patience with no assistance leads to the recidivism that happens all the time. And as you listen to this, I just hope that you stop calling people, and not you calling people, but I hope they stop calling people career criminals. Bruh, the only thing that they've become an expert in being, great at is surviving. And sometimes their survival methods don't align with a law or a new legislation that was built to increase sentencing on something that may have been a misdemeanor last year. Oh, it's now an F6 now. Oh, so there's a way that they can pivot that to get you in prison now. Maybe all these people that you have listed as so bad really aren't that bad at all. They just don't have help. And listen to me, the girl that seemed to have all of these friends and all of this support and all of this family, and I may, like the black girl, come in front of you and put on my best face at times. But I'm not okay. We're going to talk about it next episode. My new job. And the salary pay that I am now making, that would love to let people think, oh, she made it. She did it. She in there. Oh, she good now. I am not okay. I think there is a common understanding that money makes a lot of things easier. So there are a lot of things that I'm not worried about right now. But I have still sat in a prison for almost 5 years for a crime I didn't commit. I am still listed to be on probation for the next till 2023, with the chance that I may come off in July if the judge grants me, release after half of my time, after not owing the state of Arizona anything else, after fulfilling all of my requirements to the state and not ever actually talking to Arizona at all. I had to introduce myself to my probation officer last year in Arizona that's listed as my probation officer. Just maybe people will realize that people out of prison need so much assistance. And it's not that they're lazy. It's not that they're criminals. It's not that they don't want better for themselves, even though there are some that may fall into that category and not have a problem with prison. The person that doesn't have a problem with prison has grown up in an environment where prison has been normalized as a result of survival. You ever think about that? Like, who chooses this life? Nobody. Any person that has ever done this repetitively, had they ever had an option to go a different route and be successful in it, I promise you they took it. Have you ever noticed like these big time like drug dealers, how they always end up stepping away to form a legal, legitimate business that's successful? There was just a criminal path that they had to take to elevate themselves to be in a position to afford that option to live right. I'm just grateful that I didn't have addictions. I'm grateful that I do have the love and support of my friends and family. Because if the system continues the way that it does with the reentry programs formulated, like how they've been structured, people gonna keep going back to prison, y'all. And a lot of people, and then maybe even you, not judging you, a lot of you guys have been conditioned to judge that person that keeps going back without holding anybody else accountable of the systems that they continue to create to push a person there.